Hey guys, Michael from Copper vs Glass. Google Stadia will be shutting down in January 2023. A message was released last night from Phil Harrison, the Vice President and General Manager for Google Stadia, which, along with thanking all of the fans for Stadia, also has the following statement, which is very interesting. We're grateful to the dedicated Stadia players that have been with us from the start. We will be refunding all Stadia hardware purchases made through the Google Store and all game and add-on content purchases through the Stadia Store. Players will continue to have access to their games library and play through January 18th, 2023 so they can complete final play sessions. We expect to have the majority of refunds completed by mid-January 2023, and we've got more details for players on the process from our help center, and of course I will link that help center in the description below if you are a Stadia user, just to get a bit more info on what's going on. So what we're going to be doing in today's video is basically just covering a little bit of history on Google Stadia, how it went at launch, what happened, what's going to happen next, and what it means for people that have been using and playing Stadia for the last 2 years. So Stadia launched on November 19th, 2019, and to say that the launch went roughly is a bit of an understatement. Tons of people weren't necessarily interested, didn't necessarily understand the pricing system, and with things like GeForce Now on board and just in general cloud gaming taking off on the Xbox and PlayStation, not many people were very interested in what Stadia had to offer. Plus, and I think it's been proven now, Google doesn't have an amazing track record with regards to new services, keeping them going, keeping them updated, and just in general supporting them for long periods of time. And the problems just increased over the last 2 to 3 years for Stadia. In regards to player numbers, monthly subscriptions, and just in general the amount of people using the service, it was just going down and down since release date to now, and I think that's why we've reached the point of where we are today. Now, don't get me wrong, Stadia had some good ideas. Obviously, you had the free version of Stadia, which was very limited with regards to resolution and playtime. You also had a paid version where you could then play for longer, 4K resolution, better sound options, and also some free games chucked in there for good measure. However, a lot of the free games and just in general a lot of the things on offer were not necessarily the newest titles. So for example, when Stadia first came out, Destiny 2 was kind of the premier launch title, but then again, it's not a new game. Destiny 2 came out in September of 2017, around 2 years before Stadia went live. So again, to have that as sort of the premier launch title for Google Stadia, not many people were interested. They've already put maybe 2 years into Destiny itself, and again, getting on a new platform, having to start again from scratch, not carrying over any progression, again, not many people were interested. Now, over the years, they did get some better titles on board, so you had things like Cyberpunk, which, yes, okay, wasn't necessarily the best game when it came out. However, the video that I've done on Cyberpunk, actually playing it on Stadia, was probably one of the better experiences with that particular game. You also had some newer titles like Far Cry 5, Doom Eternal, Borderlands 3, just to name a few, so the games themselves did get better over time, but again, people just weren't necessarily interested. You also had the issue of the pricing of the games as well. Stadia was probably one of the more expensive places to actually get games. Obviously, if you do buy a physical disc, you can get it a lot cheaper, discounted second hand, for example. And something like Red Dead Redemption 2 often has sales on Windows or on Xbox coming in at maybe around £23. However, on Stadia, you were looking at about £54. So again, a massive difference when it came to price. And then of course we've got the fact that all of your games are going to be stuck in the Stadia ecosystem. So like today, for example, when Stadia shuts down, you can't access those games. They're gone, they're completely gone, you can't get them anywhere else, you can't transfer them from one platform over to another. If you bought anything or played anything on Stadia, all of that is going to be gone in January 2023. And already today, if you head over to the Google Stadia main page, go to the store, it already has a message saying that the service is going to close down. So even from today, you still can't buy anything on the store at all. Which kind of makes sense because again, the service is going to be closing in around 4 months. So realistically, from the day that Stadia went live up until now, it's just kind of been problem after problem. You've got the price of the games themselves, the fact they're caught in the ecosystem, you can only play them on certain devices or with certain web browsers, and just in general, they kind of made it a service that not many people wanted to use overall. So that's kind of the history of Stadia, how it started, what happened. Now from my personal experience, I've actually used Stadia quite a lot since it was launched. Now, don't get me wrong, a lot of it was to do videos here on YouTube, however nothing was paid or sponsored by Google. Everything that I've done here on the channel around Stadia was out of my own pocket. If I'm buying games or buying the service or using the service, it was down to me to actually pay for that service over that length of time. So for me, I actually didn't mind it too much. I thought in terms of the overall game performance, they performed pretty well. If you had a stable internet connection, the games also looked pretty good at 4K resolution. Yes, that was in the paid tier for Stadia, but they still looked pretty good and and played pretty good, and in general the overall lag and things like that was some of the better options that I've seen. I've also used something like GeForce Now from Nvidia, and occasionally there would be dips in frames and the lag wasn't necessarily the best out there, but for me Stadia was probably the most stable option overall. Now for me personally, I actually stopped using Stadia in around December of 2021. Now the reason for that is because I got myself an Xbox Series S with Game Pass, which in general is a better overall cost. I'm looking at around £23 a month for the All Access Game Pass, and that means that I pay for the Xbox and I also pay for Game Pass, get it all in one package, and it's a pretty good deal overall. But that doesn't mean that I sunk a ton of time and a ton of money into Stadia, so what does it mean moving forward? So the date to put in your calendar is the 18th of January 2023, that's when the Google Stadia service will shut down completely and basically cease to exist. Now it does also mention refunds. Now I bought my Google Stadia bundle on the actual Google store, which hopefully means that I'm going to be getting some money back. I paid around $49.99 for it and it came with the Google Stadia controller, a Chromecast Ultra and a copy of Cyberpunk, so it was a pretty good bundle at the time, but it looks like I'm going to get some money back for that. Now at the moment it's unclear in regards to what the refund process is going to be. Now I've put a ton of hours into it and I've played it a lot. Whether that means I'm going to get all of the money back or some of the money, it's a little bit unclear at the moment. Now I also had Stadia Pro. Now that means that in the UK I was paying around £8.99 per month to use the service. Now they've already confirmed that that money isn't going to be refunded at all. So even if you've had Stadia Pro for the last 2 or even nearly 3 years, none of that money is going to be coming back to you. Unfortunately, it's only going to be for games, add-ons or hardware purchased with Stadia. Now, not taking into account the Stadia Pro subscription each month of $8.99, I've actually personally put around £140 to £150 in Stadia. Now, it did include the initial purchase of the actual Stadia itself at $49.99 with that bundle that I mentioned, but I spent around maybe about £100 to £110 on games over the last 2 or 2.5 years. And although it states in the message from Phil Harrison that you are going to get refunded, it doesn't state whether that's going to be 100% of the refund or it's going to be a portion, maybe 50% for example. So what does it mean for Stadia and also the team behind it moving forward? Well, Google has already stated that they are going to still be using all of the resources from Stadia with regards to all of the cloud data and the team and pretty much anyone that's working on it currently moving forward with other Google products. So that could be something very simple. Obviously cloud storage for Google Stadia may be used and some of the technology may be used for Google Drive, for example. So it's not like everything is going to be going to waste with regards to the technology side of things, but the server side of things, the gaming side of things is going to stop completely. And that's going to do it guys for this video, and this is probably going to be my last video on Google Stadia. Now like I mentioned, I've actually enjoyed using Stadia over the past. I've made around 10 or 11 YouTube videos specifically for this channel on Stadia as well, and for me it was a pretty good service. It ran well, the games were okay, but obviously it hasn't held up over time. People aren't using it, paying for it, and the player base just isn't really there. If you enjoyed this video or you are a Stadia user, be sure to leave a thumbs up down below, although I'm pretty sure the Stadia users out there is very limited at this point in time. If you guys have any questions or comments or just want to talk about Stadia, let's do that in the comment section down below. And if you're not already subscribed, now is a great time to do so. I want you to hit that subscribe button, don't forget to turn on the notifications so you're notified anytime I post a video here on the channel. I'm Michael from Copper vs Glass. Thanks very much for watching, and I will catch you guys in the next video.